She thought I was too stupid to notice the financial abuse, too weak to fight back. Christmas morning, I heard her laughing about it. What she didn't know was, at 34, I thought I understood betrayal. What I discovered on Christmas morning would teach me that some wounds cut deeper than others, and sometimes the people we trust most are the ones sharpening the blade. This is the story of how I learned that being called a trained dog by the woman I loved became the wake-up call that saved my life. On Christmas morning, I overheard my wife Catherine telling her sister in the guest room, "He's so pathetic." I faked every smile. Every gift I bought him was from his own credit card. He's like a trained dog. They both laughed while I sat alone downstairs. I just smiled, and I waited. Until everyone left. 3 weeks later, her sister texted. She's screaming, "Please answer her. Hey everyone. I'm Michael, 34 years old, and I've been married to Catherine for 6 years. Or I should say, I was married, because what happened this Christmas changed everything in ways I never saw coming. It all started 4 weeks ago. January had been pretty normal for us. We'd been decorating the house together, getting a tree, buying presents for family, all that typical holiday stuff. Sure, things between us had been a bit distant lately. Catherine had been spending more time with her sister Rebecca, which didn't bother me initially. Sisters are close, right? I work as a project coordinator at a mid-sized engineering firm. Nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps us comfortable in our suburban home. I'd spent weeks planning the perfect Christmas gifts for Catherine. Had to juggle our budget pretty carefully, but I managed to set aside enough for some nice jewelry from K Jewelers, those wireless earbuds she'd been hinting about for months, and this fancy skincare set from that Korean brand she follows religiously on Instagram. I was honestly excited to see her face when she opened them, like a damn fool thinking this would bring us closer together. Christmas morning rolls around, and we had her family staying over. Her parents were in the downstairs guest room, and Rebecca was in the upstairs one. Everyone was still asleep around 7 in the morning, but I was up making coffee, thinking we'd all have breakfast together before opening presents. That's when I heard them talking. Catherine and Rebecca, their voices drifting down from the upstairs guest room. I was heading up to ask if they wanted coffee when I heard my name followed by laughter. I froze on the stairs, my heart suddenly hammering in my chest. The door was cracked just enough that I could hear everything with crystal clarity. "Michael is so pathetic," Catherine was saying, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she thought she was being clever. "You should see him every Christmas, gets so excited about his gifts for me, like he's expecting a medal or something." More laughter from Rebecca, the kind of laughter that cuts through your soul. "The best part," Catherine continued, and I could practically hear the smirk in her voice. "Every gift I buy him is just from his own credit card. He never even checks the statement. He's like a trained dog, so happy with whatever scraps I throw him." I stood there on those stairs, gripping the banister, just processing what I was hearing. The coffee mug in my other hand was shaking so badly I thought it might slip. They kept talking, but the words became a blur. Something about how she fakes her reaction to my gifts, how she's been doing this for years, how she finds it hilarious that I never notice. Then Rebecca asked the question that would haunt me. "Why do you stay with him?" Want to know Catherine's answer? "His job has good benefits, and he handles all the bills. Plus, he's so easy to manage. Who else would put up with me like this?" I quietly went back downstairs, my hands trembling so violently I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Had to sit down at our kitchen table and just breathe, staring at the Christmas tree we decorated together just weeks before. The lights seemed dimmer somehow, the ornaments we'd collected over 6 years now looking like evidence of a lie I'd been living. An hour later, everyone was downstairs opening presents. I watched Catherine like I was seeing a stranger, studying her face as she opened my carefully chosen gifts. Those big fake smiles, the exaggerated, "Oh my God, babe, this is perfect," reactions that I now realized were completely rehearsed performances. How had I never seen through this elaborate charade before? When I opened my gifts from her, a new Citizen watch, some premium Sony headphones, and this collector's edition of a video game I'd mentioned once months ago, I just smiled and thanked her. The irony was suffocating, knowing full well I had literally paid for every single item myself. Her parents seemed completely oblivious to the tension radiating from my every pore. Rebecca kept giving Catherine these little knowing smirks whenever I said anything, like they were sharing some private joke at my expense. The whole day felt like I was trapped in some bizarre parallel universe where nothing was as it seemed, where the woman I'd pledged my life to was performing elaborate theater, and I was the unwitting audience member who'd finally seen behind the curtain. After everyone left on December 28th, I did something I should have done years ago. I checked our credit cards with the methodical precision of a forensic accountant, and holy hell, what I discovered made my Christmas morning revelation look like a gentle introduction to betrayal. It wasn't just Christmas gifts. For years, Catherine had been systematically draining our financial resources. Cash advances on my credit card that I never authorized. Purchases for herself using our joint account, but telling me they were household expenses. Store credit cards opened in both our names that I didn't even know existed. Money borrowed from our savings account without my knowledge or consent. I found charges for weekly spa days, expensive lunches with Rebecca at upscale restaurants, designer clothes from Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's, all while she complained we couldn't afford to renovate our bathroom or take that vacation to Colorado I'd been dreaming about for 2 years. The next few days passed in a surreal blur. I functioned on autopilot, went to work, came home, pretended everything was normal, but inside I was a volcano of rage and betrayal. Catherine didn't suspect anything was amiss. She was too busy playing with her new jewelry and posting pictures on social media about what my amazing husband got me for Christmas. The comments were all, "You're so lucky," and "husband goals," and I just wanted to scream at every single person praising our fake perfect marriage. Every night when she fell asleep, I'd lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying that conversation in my head like a broken record. He's like a trained dog. 6 years of my life with someone who saw me as nothing more than a joke, a goddamn ATM with legs and a steady paycheck. I started digging deeper into our finances, following money trails like a detective investigating financial fraud. I discovered she'd been sending money to Rebecca too, hundreds of dollars every month from our savings account. For what? Who knows? Probably just because she could, because she'd trained me so well to never question anything. New Year's Eve arrived, and we were at a friend's party. Catherine got drunk and spent the whole night ignoring me, then demanded I drive her home early because she claimed to have a headache. As I watched her immediately perk up once we got home and start texting, probably Rebecca, something inside me just clicked with the finality of a closing door. I wasn't going to be the punchline anymore. I wasn't going to explode or confront her in some dramatic scene that would just let her paint me as the unstable husband. No, I needed to be smarter than that, more strategic. I needed to show her exactly who she'd been playing with all these years. I opened my laptop that night while Catherine was passed out from champagne and started making a comprehensive list. Everything I knew, everything I had access to, everything I needed to do. Catherine was unconscious, completely unaware that I was planning something that would fundamentally change both our lives forever. The trained dog was about to show some very new tricks. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been methodically working through my plan, setting things up, moving pieces around like a chess grandmaster planning checkmate. Catherine has noticed I've been a bit quieter than usual, but I just blamed it on a stressful project at work. She believed me without question because in her mind, I'm still that oblivious idiot who never questions anything, never looks deeper, never fights back. Yesterday was the final piece of the puzzle. I confirmed something I'd suspected but needed to be absolutely certain about. I won't go into details yet, but let's just say Catherine and Rebecca's little game of manipulation goes much deeper than I initially thought. Tomorrow, everything changes. I've taken the day off work, used some vacation time I'd been saving. Catherine is going to Rebecca's for the weekend, thinking I'll be here waiting like I always am, like that trained dog she laughed about with such casual cruelty. She has absolutely no idea what's coming. I've never felt so calm, so focused in my entire life. It's like all those years of being taken advantage of being treated like a fool, have crystallized into this perfect clarity of purpose. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just ready. Ready to show Catherine and Rebecca exactly who they've been playing with all this time. Ready to reclaim my dignity. Ready to start living a life where I'm not the punchline to someone else's joke. Here's what happened next. First, thank you for all the comments and messages on my last update. Never expected that kind of response, and reading your messages has been both validating and honestly overwhelming in the best possible way. So these last 3 weeks, where do I even begin? After discovering Catherine's betrayal, I went through this weird phase of supernatural calm, like unnaturally calm. I wasn't sleeping much, maybe 4 hours a night, but my mind was operating with razor-sharp precision. It's like all those emotions, all that rage and hurt, got channeled into pure, focused determination. The morning after my last update, I noticed something strange. Catherine asked if I wanted coffee while she was making some. She never does this. In 6 years of marriage, I've always made my own coffee. It was like she sensed something was shifting in the atmosphere and was trying to be extra nice. Too little, way too late. First thing I did was call my bank during my lunch break, sitting in my Honda Civic in the parking lot for privacy. Changed all my passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and requested new cards. Told them my wallet felt compromised after a suspicious transaction I'd noticed. They overnight shipped everything to my workplace, not to our home address. When Catherine texted asking why there was a fraud alert on our joint account, I just said I was updating our security after reading about some data breach online. She bought it without a single follow-up question. The irony of her being concerned about fraud was almost too perfect. Next, I started keeping a detailed journal, documenting everything with the precision of a court reporter. Screenshots of bank statements, credit card bills, records of all those gifts she'd given me that I'd actually purchased myself. Photographed items around our house that I'd paid for, but she claimed were her thoughtful presents. This wasn't just for potential divorce proceedings, it was for my own sanity, to remind myself I wasn't losing my mind, that what I'd overheard on Christmas morning was real and not some paranoid delusion. Day by day, I started making small but deliberate changes. Stopped doing her laundry, when I'd always done both mine and hers without being asked. Didn't ask her what she wanted for dinner every single night like some personal chef. Started going to the gym after work instead of rushing home to spend time with her. Declined attending her friend's birthday dinner, something the old Michael would never have done. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger major alarm bells, but enough that she definitely noticed the shift in our dynamic. On day 4, she actually asked if everything was okay between us. I just shrugged and said work had been particularly stressful lately. The old Michael would have apologized profusely and tried to make it up to her with flowers or a surprise dinner. Not anymore. While all this was happening on the surface, I was taking care of much bigger preparations behind the scenes. Found an apartment, nothing fancy, just a clean one-bedroom about 25 minutes away from our house. Paid the deposit and first month's rent from my personal savings account that Catherine didn't know existed. I'd started it 3 years ago, originally for a surprise anniversary trip that was clearly never going to happen now. Called my buddy Jake from college, who's become a financial advisor. Met him for what Catherine thought were just casual catching-up drinks, but we actually spent 4 hours going through my finances in excruciating detail. His face when I showed him what Catherine had been doing, man, he looked like he was witnessing a crime scene. Jake helped me create a step-by-step plan to disentangle our financial lives without causing immediate red flags. One of the hardest parts was not reacting when Catherine would do or say something that now seemed so obviously manipulative. Like when she surprised me with takeout from my favorite Italian place, paid for with my own credit card, then expected endless gratitude like she'd performed some magnificent gesture. Or when she complained about how tight money was becoming, right after I discovered she'd spent $400 on new clothes from Anthropologie just that week. I kept thinking about all the red flags I'd missed over the years. How she'd get visibly irritated whenever I wanted to check her joint account balance. The way she'd dismiss my budget concerns, but somehow always had new purchases to show off. How she gradually isolated me from my friends, especially Jake and my buddy Ryan from work. Those girls' trips with Rebecca that always seemed to cost twice what she'd initially budgeted. How she'd make me feel guilty for buying anything for myself, even necessary things like work clothes or replacing my worn-out running shoes. Speaking of friends, I reached out to Jake and Ryan for the first time in nearly 2 years. Catherine had always claimed they were bad influences who didn't respect our marriage. Turns out they'd tried to contact me multiple times over the years, but Catherine had told them I was too busy with work and family obligations. We met up for beers at this sports bar we used to frequent, and it was like no time had passed at all. I didn't tell them everything that was happening yet, but just reconnecting with people who actually cared about me felt like coming up for air after being underwater for years. Around day 8, I noticed Catherine texting more frantically than usual. her fingers flying across her phone screen with urgent intensity. Later that night, I pretended to fall asleep on our couch while watching Netflix, but actually saw her slip into the bathroom with her phone. The door wasn't completely closed, and I could hear her talking to Rebecca in hushed, worried tones. "Something's wrong with Michael," she was saying, her voice tight with anxiety. "He's acting different, distant. What if he knows something?" Rebecca told her she was being paranoid, that I was too clueless to figure anything out, that Catherine had me too well trained for me to ever wise up to their games. That comment made finalizing my plan so much easier. The absolute arrogance of it, the casual dismissal of my intelligence, just hardened my resolve completely. By day 10, I had accomplished more than I'd thought possible. Opened new bank accounts at a completely different bank, transferred my direct deposit to the new account, documented all our shared assets and their approximate values with photographic evidence, gathered all my important documents, birth certificate, passport, everything, and stored them safely. Quietly packed a suitcase with essential clothes and personal items, stored it in my car trunk where Catherine would never think to look. Consulted with a divorce attorney that Jake had recommended, a sharp woman named Patricia who specialized in financial abuse cases. Catherine was definitely sensing that something fundamental was shifting. She tried initiating intimacy twice that week, something that had become increasingly rare in our marriage. I made polite excuses about being exhausted from work stress. The confusion and concern on her face almost made me laugh. The trained dog wasn't performing on command anymore, and she couldn't understand why her usual manipulation tactics weren't working. The Wednesday before everything went down, Rebecca came over for dinner. I played my role perfectly, the slightly distant but generally oblivious husband. Made small talk about work and current events, cleaned up after dinner without complaint, then said I needed to finish some project reports and went upstairs. Instead, I sat at the top of the stairs in the exact same spot where I'd overheard them on Christmas morning. And wouldn't you know it, they started talking about me again with the same casual cruelty. Catherine was genuinely worried now, telling Rebecca that I was acting weird, distant, not texting her during the day like I used to, not jumping to do things for her the moment she asked. Rebecca told her she was overthinking everything, that men go through phases, and that Catherine had me wrapped around her finger too tightly for anything to fundamentally change. If only they knew what was coming. Friday morning arrived, the day Catherine was leaving for her weekend at Rebecca's. I acted completely normal, even helped her load her overnight bag into her car, kissed her goodbye at the front door. She seemed relieved that I was being normal again, said she'd miss me and would call when she got there. I smiled and said I'd miss her too, knowing it would be the last lie I'd ever tell her. As soon as her car disappeared around the corner of our suburban street, I sprang into action with military precision. Called the moving company I'd already arranged, and they arrived exactly 30 minutes later with a truck and 3 guys who clearly knew their business. In 4 hours, we loaded up everything that was mine. All my furniture that I'd brought into the marriage, my electronics, clothes, personal items, things I could prove I'd purchased with documentation. About half of our kitchen items, being completely fair about shared property. I left all her clothes, her vanity, her desk, her bookshelves, anything that was clearly hers or that we bought together, and I couldn't definitively prove I'd paid for. The movers were professional, didn't ask unnecessary questions, and when I tipped them generously, they wished me luck with whatever I was going through. By mid-afternoon, my new apartment was set up with my essential furniture. Not comfortable yet, but functional and clean and mine. The silence was incredible after years of Catherine's constant noise, her phone calls with Rebecca, her reality TV shows playing in the background. Next, I went to our bank and withdrew exactly half of our joint savings account, not a penny more. Even though she'd been systematically stealing from it for years, I wanted to be completely above reproach legally. Back at what used to be our house, I set up the final scene on our dining room table. Laid out copies of all the credit card statements showing her purchases of my supposed gifts. Screenshots of the cash withdrawals she'd made without my knowledge. Printouts of all the Christmas gifts I'd actually bought her, with receipts proving I'd paid for everything. A detailed file of money she'd been sending to Rebecca from our joint account for months. And the piece de resistance, the audio recording of them talking about me being a trained dog. Yes, I'd gone back and recorded their latest conversation. Completely legal in our state since I was in my own home. On top of all this evidence, I placed the divorce papers from my attorney, my house key, and my wedding ring. Then I blocked Catherine's number on my phone, but not before sending one final text message. The trained dog learned some new tricks. Enjoy your weekend with Rebecca. I left my phone unblocked for other numbers, just in case of genuine emergency. I'm not a monster, despite everything. Then I went to my new apartment, ordered pizza from a place that delivered, cracked open a beer, and waited. Around 8:30 that evening, my phone exploded with notifications. Catherine had clearly come home early and discovered everything. Text after text from unknown numbers, her using friends' phones after realizing I'd blocked her primary number. Voicemails that started angry and became increasingly desperate. Emails that ranged from furious to pleading. Social media messages that I could see notifications for but didn't open. I didn't respond to any of it, just sat there in my new living room, feeling this incredible weight lifting off my shoulders with each ignored message. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe properly, like I was finally living in reality instead of some elaborate performance. Then this morning around 10:15, it happened. The text from Rebecca. She's screaming, "Please answer her." I smiled, took a screenshot from my records, and went back to assembling my new IKEA desk. It's been 6 months now since that Christmas morning revelation, and I wanted to give you the final chapter of this story. Spring turned to summer, and my apartment truly feels like home now. I've reconnected with old friends, made some new ones, even started taking a cooking class at the community center. Something Catherine always said I'd be terrible at. Turns out, I'm actually pretty decent with a skillet. The divorce finalized 4 months ago, faster than average according to my attorney, because we had no children and Catherine ultimately didn't contest much once she saw all the evidence I'd gathered. We sold the house, split the proceeds down the middle, divided our remaining shared assets, and signed papers that reduced 6 years of marriage to legal terminology and notarized signatures. Catherine, last I heard through mutual friends, is still living with Rebecca. Apparently their perfect sister relationship has cracked under the pressure of actually sharing living space full-time. Rebecca's boyfriend moved out when Catherine moved in permanently, and the financial strain of supporting two people on Rebecca's salon income has shown Rebecca exactly who Catherine really is. Someone who takes and takes until there's nothing left to give. Sometimes, late at night in my quiet apartment, I still find myself thinking about everything that happened. Not with regret, but with this strange sense of wonder. How did I not see the manipulation for so long? Why did I accept being treated like an ATM instead of a partner? Therapy has been incredibly helpful in understanding that it wasn't weakness that kept me in that situation. It was trust. I trusted someone who didn't deserve it, who saw my loyalty as something to exploit rather than cherish. Yesterday, I got a friend request on Instagram from Catherine. I declined it without hesitation. 10 minutes later, a text from an unknown number. "I miss you. I'm sorry. I've changed." I didn't respond. There's no need to. That chapter of my life is completely closed, and I'm writing new pages now. The trained dog learned new tricks, found a new home, and is finally completely off the leash. And you know what? Life has never felt more authentic, more genuinely mine. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who see you as less than you are. At 34, I learned that lesson the hard way, but I learned it completely. And that's made all the difference.